A long time ago, we used to be friends, but I haven't thought of you lately at all. That's not true. I think about you every day because I'm your cult boyfriend, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun talking about season 2 of Veronica Mars today with you all. Um, Season 2 is my favorite season of Veronica Mars. I think it's masterful. I think it's incredible. Let's be honest. I'm going to spend most of this video, probably almost all of this video, analyzing evil. I'm dedicating most of this video to Beaver, Casablancas, to the big bad, to the primary antagonist of season 2, and I would argue Veronica Mars's arch nemesis, or at least the greatest villain she ever faced, and I think the best villain um, ever made by Rob Thomas, one of the best villains ever, and I would have to say, maybe ironically, in a poetic way, um, one of the most overlooked and underappreciated villains of all time. Cassidy Casablancas, I guess it's fitting that even in death, he's never really viewed or respected or understood as as a really powerful force of psychopathic dread. First of all, Kyle Gallner, his performance was excellent. Kyle Gallner went above and beyond and crafted a character that is just so intensely insecure that it has become weaponized. He created a character that is so psychotic and so desperate that I will never forget Cassidy Casablancas. So Kyle Gallner, you fucking rule. You are incredible on the second season of Veronica Mars. Wow. Wow. Always astonished. Certain like I will never get how scared and desperate and defeated Kyle Gallner looks and sounds when he goes, "My name is Cassidy," at the end of his arc, at the end of his life. Cassidy Casablancas. Within Cassidy, we are able to investigate and explore. So I want you to see the notes. You ain't allowed to see the notes. It's behind the scenes stuff. You're supposed to think I'm really smart. Actually, it's like 3 sentences. I should come more prepared, but I have a lot of confidence in myself. Where was I? Within Cassidy Casablancas, we are able to investigate the dark side of the postmodern brat. I talk about postmodern brats a lot. Cassidy Casablancas is definitely one of them. He's in good company, and it's not exclusive to villains. It's not exclusive to antagonistic forces. Not only would Nancy Downs from The Craft be in this grouping, but so would Lucas Scott from One Tree Hill. So would Pacey Witter from Dawson's Creek. Then again, so would Mickey Altieri from Scream 2. It's a place where people challenge meta narratives. It's a place where people reject narratives. It's a place where people act out against a world that seems entirely unfair because it is entirely unfair. It's a group of kids who are weaponized by years and years of being abused by those in power. It comes from a place of rebellion and often a place of a dreadful amount of insecurity. Cassidy Casablancas is, I think, one of the most fascinating characters that I've ever engaged with, and I think it's perfectly written and conceived of by Rob Thomas and the other writers on Veronica Mars, that not every question is answered, and you wish you had more time with Cassidy. I love that there is something always mysterious about him, like how he got this psychotic. But if you pay attention, you will understand how he was weaponized to such a helpless extent. Veronica Mars season 2 centers around an explosion. A bus is full of these kids on a field trip back from a baseball stadium where they meet Woody Goodman. They meet Woody Goodman's daughter Gia. They meet some professional baseball players, and on the way back, a bomb goes off on the bus, taking out the driver, and the bomb goes off right when they're about to turn around a cliff. And of course, since the driver's dead, the bus goes over the cliff. Everyone on the bus dies. Um, the bus is full of your average teenager, while the limo behind them is full of the rich O-9ers who didn't have to ride the bus. This gives way to a lot of really interesting episodes of the show. I think that I Am God is a phenomenal episode, maybe one of the best Veronica Mars episodes structurally and creatively, where Veronica Mars has these hallucinations and dreams of each of the different people on the bus who died, and she's uncovering certain clues through talking to their ghosts, so to speak. And I mean, this season is structured beautifully because a lot of the time Veronica is dealing with an impact left by one of the deceased classmates, and the image becomes more and more clear when you realize that most of the students on that bus, or at least three or four of them, were all on the same little league team together, who Woody Goodman coached and operated. And Woody Goodman is a vile creep. He's a pedophile. He's a pedophile with an awful lot of power. He is basically running Neptune. And he abused these kids and probably has continued to abuse many, many other ones. And these kids were going to come forward for the outing of the century. They were going to destroy Woody's reputation. That was until they were all killed on the bus. There was another person on that baseball team. There's another person on the Little League team. So undervalued, so seemingly unimportant that the pictures that exist of the roster, of the lineup, of the team, he's not pictured. His name's Cassidy Casablancas. Cassidy is suffering from that trauma for the entire season, for his entire life, right? It was such a traumatic sexual experience that he got chlamydia from it. And I think that the idea of sex completely triggers something deep and homicidal, suicidal inside of him. Um, he has a relationship with Mac this season, the computer whiz, who I love. She's a great character. And aesthetically, Kyle Gallner and Tina Majorino, I think is how you say her name, they look amazing together. And he's incredibly abusive towards her because he's so fucking insecure and weird. I don't buy the theory that he's gay, mostly because I think that even if he was in a gay relationship, he still wouldn't be able to engage in sexual activity with any partner. I don't think it has to do with gender. I think what it has to do with is his first exposure to sexuality um, traumatized him for life. And the thing that is tearing him up inside is that his brother, of course, is Dick Casablancas, who is the epitome of toxic masculinity. So when Beaver has all of these crazy feelings when it comes to sex, and maybe he is struggling with his sexuality. But the important part of it, the part that is truly horrific, is that he feels like he's always having to prove his masculinity, especially living in the shadow of his brother. This guy who constantly taunts him for being a nerd, or for acting gay, or for just being inept socially and insecure emotionally. And he's always trying to prove himself. I mean, he goes the distance to prove his masculinity when he actually does rape Veronica at Shelley Pomeroy's party, the subject of the trip to the dentist episode of the first season, where Beaver denies it then. Beaver definitely did rape Veronica Mars. And she has that line of, well, I was unconscious, so I guess you could have imagined I was anything you wanted me to be, to, like, in order for you to get it up, because Mac told her about the problems that she was having with her relationship with Cassidy. Trauma can weaponize someone. Absolutely. And if you want to say that he's battling with his sexuality, I think he's battling with his gender identity as well, then. He's constantly made fun of for being effeminate. He's infantilized, so he's never truly a man. He's like a boy. It's like Beaver. He's a beaver. Beaver, which could be a euphemism for, for those female naughty parts, but also it's an infantilizing word. So, like, the thing that people call him most when they see him is something that immediately triggers a response of sexual, like, deep sexual insecurity, because it is a euphemism for pussy. Um, but it's also an infantilized version of that euphemism. That's why he's so quick to correct people that his name is Cassidy, that he is a man. And he also wants to kind of remove that sexualized ribbing from his namesake. Um, his father doesn't bring him to the shooting range. His father doesn't do anything with him. He does things with Dick all the time. His mother doesn't want anything to do with her family at all. She rebuffs his request to live with her after his father is arrested for playing the real estate market. Cassidy Casablancas is unseen, not pictured in the grand scheme of things, and yet he's a future business leader of America, right? Veronica Mars season 2 forced me to learn about incorporation. That's the only thing that's on this piece of paper right here. Because fuck you, Rob Thomas. It's beautiful, and I'll explain why it's beautiful, but at first you're like, what? I have to learn about incorporation? Like with a city? Um, Thank God that we have that economics teacher who uses Palo Alto as an example of the dark side of incorporation, which effectively puts up a wall between economic classes, resulting in an ultra rich center surrounded by the crime capital of America. Cassidy Casablanca starts his own real estate company, Phoenix. Symbol should be pretty evident. He bets against incorporation, which is Woody Goodman's new fetishistic pet project when it comes to playing with the city of Neptune. Woody Goodman fetishizes class and social stratification. And Cassidy bets against that and nets like over $8 million. Cassidy Casablancas was a genius. Cassidy Casablancas was a psychotic. Trauma can weaponize you. So let's say that Cassidy is traumatized at a very early age, with his first exposure to sexuality being the most grim and abusive one you could possibly imagine. We see Woody Goodman. We see him in interactions with his own son. Woody Goodman is a complete monster. He's a monster. Steve Guttenberg, you did amazing here. He's a complete monster. So that's trauma. So that's when Cassidy experiences trauma. And he's brought up in this ultra rich, hyper privileged world where he's not recognized, where he's not good enough for anything. And it's a constant series of weaponizations. He's being weaponized every single time he is called Beaver. He's being weaponized every single time he sees Woody Goodman, which is all the time because he's a public figure. The people who built your worlds, the people who are bringing up your kids, the people you trust your kids to, those ultra rich, like peons of virtue, those are the ones who are destroying them. Your future business leaders of America, they're psychopaths. And they're psychopaths because you made them that way. Now, Cassidy was probably always psychotic. And what happens when you traumatize a psychopath? You weaponize that psychopath. There's a brilliant moment where Cassidy humiliates Dick, and then Dick assaults Cassidy and is about to punch him in the face, where Cassidy is like, "Oh, no, no, no. You will suffer way worse if you hit me. Trust me. Remember Sally?" We're never told what exactly Sally is. You have to research what Rob Thomas has to say about it, because he's been asked and he's like, I think it's possibly alluding to a pet, like a dog or a cat or something that the Casablancas used to have that Beaver made disappear. We're talking about what he did when he was a kid. We're talking about psychopathic tendencies already evident possibly before the trauma. Some of these kids are mentally ill, and if you put them in a postmodern wasteland of hyper juxtaposed and contrasted slums and mansions, he's going to grow up to be a very weaponized, sadistic genius. I think the best scene in Veronica Mars is Cassidy's final scene, where he has truly revealed himself to Veronica on the roof of the Neptune Grand, where Veronica pieces it all together for us. He's got her at gunpoint. He tries to kill her father, blows up Woody's plane. Yeah, okay, so like Cassidy's plan is enormous and it's intricate, it's vast, and it's unmerciful. He blows up the school bus because of the kids who are going to come forward. And Beaver is so ridiculously insecure and traumatized and ashamed of being abused by Woody Goodman that he would rather murder the kids on the bus than have them come forward. But he uses that situation to blackmail Woody and expose him for actually being an abuser, and then blow up his airplane after Keith Mars had found him in hiding and brought him back to stand trial. He kills Woody Goodman, and he bets against Woody Goodman's fetishistic new economic idea of incorporating Neptune, basically codifying the intense class disparity, social stratification into law, where the rich get richer. He bet against that and he won. It's a total and complete humiliation and deconstruction and destruction of his abuser, of Woody Goodman. He wants to go after everyone who punished and weaponized him. He knew that his father was a criminal, and he exposed him through Veronica, through making Veronica believe that she was actually seeing if Kendall was having an affair. He knew that. He knew that. He just knew that Veronica would expose his father Richard's own illegal foundations of his real estate empire, punishing his father for never viewing him as a man. And he's up on that rooftop, and his voice is still cracking, and he's still wavering, and he's still insecure. He never feels comfortable in his body for even a moment. Logan runs up there and saves Veronica's life. Cassidy creeps over to the ledge And this is the best moment. It's one of the best moments ever in television, but certainly teen drama. Logan says, "Don't, Beaver, don't." He turns and says, "My name is Cassidy." Cassidy, don't. Why not? And you see the look on Logan's face, trying to think of just one reason why this kid shouldn't kill himself. And he can't. That's what I thought. And then with a look of grim resolve, he jumps back off the balcony and kills himself. That is a heartbreaking moment because of how truthful it is. He was a postmodern brat because he destroyed the architects of Neptune. He targeted them as he was targeted, as he was made to feel abused, made to feel feminine, made to feel like he wasn't a man, like he was inept, like he was lacking. And that destroyed him on the inside and weaponized him so deeply that he tried to not only reject Neptune's narrative of wealth, but deconstruct it, redefine it, repurpose it, and use that new sincerity that he was trying to find through manipulation and reevaluate his own concept of masculinity, which would come from being recognized as powerful. And the only way that the grammar within Neptune's narrative that he was deconstructing and breaking apart and manipulating, and the only way that that grammar could properly articulate. If he wasn't masculine in Neptune's eyes as it stood, well, he would reorganize the language that Neptune used until he would be viewed as masculine, until he would be viewed as valuable. It's just mind blowing because we don't have an innocent Beaver ever. The first time he shows up in the Mad episode of season 1, he's already raped Veronica at that point. He'd already been weaponized and abused. And the bus goes off the cliff in the very first episode of season 2. So we never see an innocent Beaver. Beaver is always thinking, he's always planning. He is Moriarty for my generation. He is I think he's a perfect nemesis for Veronica because Veronica looks at the same problems. She doesn't experience the same sorts of well, actually, she kind of does experience the same trauma, right? And it's a trauma that Beaver is inflicting upon her. It's a sexual trauma. He raped her, and he's punishing Neptune as a whole for making it because of how empty it made him feel, how without definition he felt as a man, as a thing with a future. I mean, he destroyed Veronica. He hurt her so bad. He was ultimately just barely, he just barely got caught. Veronica will always be stronger than Beaver Casablancas. Veronica will always be more healthy than Cassidy Casablancas. Veronica Mars will always be my hero. But there's a deep tragedy to Cassidy Casablancas, and it's the tragedy of never truly getting to his interiority. Because, like, I imagine the inside of this kid, the emotional underbelly of Cassidy is just a ball of nerves. It's just electric shocks and currents, right? It's extremely dangerous and hazardous to peer inside of this kid's psychology because it's not only so dark, it's so insecure, it's so unsure of itself. It keeps moving and trying to incorporate all these different themes that he's accustomed to, all these different character traits that his brother possesses that he certainly lacks. He is a psychotic, he's a psychopath, and he's unavoidable, you know, because I think he was a psychopath before Woody abused him when he was a kid. I think he was already killing pets and stuff. Remember Sally? He had what most people would generally consider a perfect life. He was heir to a majestic throne of business, of class, of wealth. But I think he was psychotic and he was unavoidable. And he had a great education. He had great mentors, even if those mentors didn't view him as such. I mean, he learned how to be sadistic from the best. He learned from his father and he learned from Woody Goodman. He learned how to be sadistic by the most sadistic people in his life, and those were two father figures who abused him, one emotionally and the other sexually and physically. And Beaver certainly punished his own architects of his insecurity. He punished the architects of Neptune, who in his eyes were also the founders of his flaws, the things that made him so weaponized and insecure and hurt. He found those people out and he punished them on a grand scale, and he did it all before graduating high school. He's the dark side of the postmodern brat. Because he tried to deconstruct, he tried to be this weaponized wrecking ball inside of an incredibly strict and rigid social sphere like Neptune. They had a dark element to him that was unfathomable. He had something that was so demented, ingrained, beaten into his character. His treachery was just simply unavoidable. And you couldn't see it coming because you never saw him to begin with. Not as a true threat, not as anything with a definition other than beaver, pussy. And even after all that, Cassidy jumps to his death from the roof of the Neptune Grand, which is so colorful, which is so, I mean, like, symbolically, poetically colorful. I love the setting of the top of the Neptune Grand because it's as if like a literal metaphor for how Cassidy ascended the ladder of success in Neptune so effortlessly and so easily. And he's on that rooftop. It's about a kid who kills himself by jumping off of the highest rung on the socioeconomic ladder. It's about the psychopathy of financial success. It's about how weaponization, trauma, those go hand in hand. And it's about the psychopathic limits of sexual insecurity. Cassidy Casablancas haunts my dreams. Probably the best villain I've ever seen. He and Nancy Downs. Forever. Nancy was right. in the craft. But Cassidy couldn't have been more wrong. And he also couldn't have been more insecure or more psychotic. Brilliant performance. Astonishingly mesmerizing and um, depressing and like life affecting character. Because I love analyzing with these characters and with these shows, and I go really deep into it. I attach emotionally, like very deeply, because that's how I can understand. That's how I understand the best. But there are certain characters that like a Nietzschean abyss, right? You gaze into it for a while and the abyss stares back into you. There are some places that are too dark to examine. And Cassidy Casablancas is always in an extremely dark place. He's one of the darkest of all the dark places. And when I engage and interact with Cassidy, I can feel his peculiar brand of wealthy weaponization staring back into me, kind of ridiculing my theory of the postmodern brat. You want to celebrate postmodern rejection, your cult boyfriend? Well, no one rejected it more thoroughly, more finally, or more grotesquely than Cassidy Casablancas. Maybe, maybe the postmodern brat is the greatest villain of all. Otherwise, this season is just wonderful. Veronica Mars is delightful. There's so many funny bits in here. Veronica Mars has accused me of evil. We get great lines in it. You get some really good Logan and Veronica moments, making them like one of the best couples ever. I love them together. I thought our story was epic. You and me, spanning years and continents, lives ruined, bloodshed. Epic. Yeah, that moment hits me hard, and I think it hits the entire Veronica Mars fandom the same amount. Great moment. Great stuff. Charisma Carpenter playing Kendall Casablancas. I'm a huge Buffy fan. I love seeing Charisma Carpenter. Hot as fuck forever. Queen forever. Great performance. Tessa Thompson's in this season, and she's mostly bad. I've seen a lot of people say that like the Jackie character is just poorly developed, but it's not. It's a full character. She's just bad at portraying it. I'm kind of unforgiving when it comes to that because I'm sick of seeing that like Jackie was just underdeveloped, but she wasn't. She was fully fleshed out and given so many opportunities to shine that Tessa Thompson wastes entirely. She's cool seeing. She's really cute. She has a decent amount of like emotive expression, but she's like inherently unlikable on screen here, and I don't know why. I normally like her as an actor, but here she squandered every opportunity she was handed over. Wallace went through a lot with his dad, with Jackie. Wallace is always great. I always love Wallace. I'll probably never have anything bad to say about Wallace or Mac. I think that Veronica's like core friend group. I think they're extraordinary, and I love hanging out with them. Duncan has the whole Meg and the baby thing. Meg was on that bus, by the way. But Meg and the baby and going to Mexico and like um Clarence Weedman kills Aaron Eccles who gets out of jail. It's a whole bunch of shit. I'm just glad we're rid of Duncan forever now because he sucked as a character. And it's nice seeing Aaron Eccles get shot. And I do like the cheeky ways that Rob Thomas communicates with fans with this was like during the last of UPN's run as a channel, I think, right? Probably. And no one really knew what was going to happen with the show. The fate of the show was hung in balance, like it always has. It's terrible being a fan of Veronica Mars because it's always going away, but then it's always coming back by a miracle, by an act of some sardonic postmodern god. We always get it back. I still don't think we're done with Veronica Mars. I think we're going to be seeing Kristen Bell as a private eye again. But when Clarence Weedman kills Aaron Eccles, he calls Duncan, and Duncan answers with CW, to which Clarence says it's a done deal. And I mean, I think it's been confirmed that was Rob Thomas communicating with the fans of the show who are watching this on UPN that Veronica Mars is confirmed to be picked up by the CW for a third season. Cheeky, fun, and then serves the plot perfectly. Like, good job, man. Um, Rob Thomas, I think, outdid himself this season when it comes to structure, when it comes to power, when it comes to emotion, when it comes to romance, and then when it comes to the most demented qualities like Cassidy Casablancas and Woody Goodman. Gia, oh my God, Kristen Ritter, just like marry me, Kristen Ritter, or just marry me, Gia. I like her a lot. I think she's really funny and silly and goofy and sexy. I love Gia. She's great. At least we'll be talking about Gia again when we get to the film. So I think I will like hyperanalyze Gia, but I'll wait for the movie because she actually is a true character there. She gets fleshed out a lot more and has some more meaningful confrontations and interactions with Veronica in the film. In this season, she's like like a red herring, she's a bimbo, she's silly, she's up in the air. You never know what to make of her. I just want to make out with her. I don't know. I love Kristen Ritter on this show, and yeah, expect a lot of Gia analysis when I get to the film. But for now, really fun, really funny, really cute character that I really enjoyed hanging out with a lot. And who else? Oh yes, the PCHers. Weevil, really cool. It's just really cool. He's going through his gang stuff. I guess he gets arrested before graduation. Fuck you, Sheriff Lamb, who had one amazing moment on this show, didn't he? And it was in this season where Meg's sister's being hidden in a closet, and he goes back in there, and it's like, my father told me the same thing. There's so much interiority there, and the way the show ends with him in his car, like, do you imagine him like in perpetuity, like just staring at the house, waiting for a moment to punch Meg's father in the face while pretending it's his own dad? Like, great Sheriff Lamb moment. Love it. Great Sheriff Lamb moment. Keith Mars gets to fool around with his old co-star from Just Shoot Me, who is smoking like forever. That was cool. That was fun. Good energy. Great performance again. The dynamic between Veronica and her father is just simply a great representation of single dad with a daughter. It's wonderful. It's like really heartwarming all the time. It's probably the most consistently heartfelt quality of the show is the father daughter dynamic between Keith and Veronica. I think that the mysteries in this season, like the self-contained bottle mysteries, are a lot more engaging and exciting, funnier with unexpected turns. I think that more of them inform the overall narrative because several of them do have to do specifically with a casualty of the bus crash, which help paint this overall picture of postmodern rejection and how damaging and terrible it can be. Because this is Cassidy's postmodern rejection of Neptune's narrative writ large. And my God, it's thrilling and scary. Like petrifying. I'm horrified by Cassidy Casablancas. I'm horrified by this kid because like actually engaging with Cassidy is like super dangerous to me philosophically. Incredible villain. I loved Cassidy Casablanca so much. Once again, mad respect to Kyle Gallner. You pulled it off. You were so good here. And to my knowledge, like Rob Thomas and I think most of the head writers knew that Cassidy was going to be the big bad of season two. But I don't believe Kyle Gallner knew until they were getting ready to film the finale. So it had so much more to his characterization because there's this Cassidy is always cripplingly self-aware, but it's interesting to think that the actor who portrayed him wasn't even aware of the of his true identity, of his true demented persona. but it just feels so clear when you rewatch it. Like he's always so he could never be possessed by a moment, you know? He he's never comfortable in his own skin. He's never comfortable in the moment. He's never gotten to live. Not truthfully. I don't think he's ever felt alive, and I also don't think Cassidy Casablancas ever wanted to be alive. I think he knew he was deluding himself by with the Phoenix Land Trust just getting so much money and reaching the top of that economic ladder. I think he was deluding himself into thinking that his life could have had a purpose because he knew it never could have a purpose, and I knew it never could have a purpose, and no one could even give him one good reason not to kill himself after they knew all the things that he had done. Cassidy Casablancas was always better off dead, and that's the most tragic component of how sophisticated his treatment was as a villain, as the primary antagonist of Veronica Mars season 2. The most tragic part is that the world would have been better off if Cassidy Casablancas had never existed. That statement is the most weaponizing thing that a postmodern brat could truly know about oneself. Fuck, dude. Like, I'm damaged now from actually having to, with laser focus, figure out what's going on with Cassidy. I know what's going on with Cassidy, and I wish I didn't. Because it's some interacting with Cassidy Casablancas brings you to some seriously troubling places. I don't blame him for killing himself at all. I'm surprised he didn't do it earlier. And I think he's surprised too that he made it this long. He made it long enough to inflict some real pain and punishment. And ultimately, he knew he was the one who should have been punished most of all. It's the best Veronica Mars villain by far. And Cassidy is a character who will always stick with me, whether I want him to or not. I think that's all I can say. Thank you for watching, as always.